Hello, hello, and welcome to our very latest On Point review. Today, we are going to be reviewing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Wrath of the Mutants. We played the game on the Xbox Series X. We were provided the key by Renaissance PR and Lurk It. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I am CMoney, and I am joined by the always lovely Doodle.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so very much for rocking out with us today.
Thank you indeed. So we got the chance to go ahead and play this game. If you're not familiar with what it is, it's basically a re-experience of the 2017 arcade classic of the same name. And it's going to go ahead and have 3 additional stages and 6 additional bosses, never before seen in the classic 2017 arcade game. I gotta say, I think we're gonna have a fun one when reviewing this one.
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and get started with the graphics. Doodle, why don't you let us know where did you sit with the graphics?
Well, the game immediately just grabs your attention because of the visual feast of vibrant colors. So the graphics are a throwback to the old school style of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles era, right? Which is very comforting because we grow up with that. So it was definitely a really, really amazing feeling. It provides nostalgia that's comforting and visually pleasing. The initial excitement does kind of slow down
Yeah,
as the game progresses, and it becomes, less impactful because of the repetition. It gets a little bit repetitive, but you do feel that comforting and that excitement of seeing these characters that we grew up with, and they were very authentic in the game. In my opinion, I was very excited. I was like, oh my gosh, Michelangelo.
yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I feel you. Definitely, when you first start the game, you kind of get that like that feel like, oh man, all right, this is Ninja Turtles, right? Like
Yes,
you're entering
absolutely.
like that cartoon world. Now the graphics are they're kind of middle of the road, right? Like it's not something that's gonna be like, oh my god, your jaw's gonna drop, but it's also not an eyesore, right? Like it doesn't look bad,
Absolutely
right?
not. It
Um,
like I said, it really draws you in
for
um
sure.
when you
The
start.
levels have a decent variety to them. You know, like the different levels. You have like the gritty looking streets, all the way to like a neon lit skyscraper, right? So it really gives you kind of the taste of like that Turtles New York that you
Absolutely.
saw in the movies and the game, right? But one of the things is like the bad guys, right? You mentioned repetition, and I would say that the enemies that you do go ahead and fight, like you see a lot of them repeating constantly, right? Like there's an assortment of them, but once you kind of get through the first couple of missions or the first couple of worlds, you do kind of see that repeat happening.
Yes, absolutely. You do see that, and it's something that it's very impactful. You see it, you're like, oh, that's so awesome, that's so cool, that's so 90s. You also see like graffiti on the walls, which is like such a cool throwback. They did that surfing board that from the old school game, and it's in there too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. That's so awesome. But yes, when you do see the bad guys, initially you're like, oh man, that's so dope. And then it kind of like, okay, more of the same type of
Yeah,
situation.
and that's kind of like for your normal running, like run of the mill bad guys, right? Like
Yes.
each place has a boss or two, and those are all like your big characters that you would expect to see in the game, and they all look very unique. They all have their own different battle that you have to do with them. So they definitely vary that portion of it, but overall, I think being on the newer consoles, I know it's also available on the last gen as well. Um, I think it's just I feel like, oh man, it would be nice if it was a little more graphically intensive, but I think they did a great job for what they were aiming for. All right, so let's take it to the story of it.
Yes.
Where do you feel?
So the story was pretty straightforward. straightforward, right? The narrative that's just like easy to follow and reminiscent of the original arcade adventures, right? Um, so there's not necessarily much depth to it, right? But while the story served its purpose, it did lack innovation, right? Um, which it would have been an opportunity to add a fresh layer to the beloved franchise. At least that's what I felt towards the end, and I don't want to give off the end. It kind of just shows you where what the journey was about, and I just feel like I would have loved a bit more context in the beginning to tie it all together. Again, it would have kept the story still simple, but just a bit more layers to it that I would have enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not. I mean, obviously, this is like an arcade type game, right? So I don't think anybody's expecting some huge, big narrative, right?
Absolutely not.
It's just enough to kind of get you from place to place. But it's your typical fare for Ninja Turtles, right? Like, I mean, it's you gotta save April O'Neil, right? Like that's the game.
Oh, you just said
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
That's the game.
what
That's
the
the game.
mission was, but see,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Until the end, you're like, you're once you hit the end, you're like, oh, this is what I was doing this for.
And let me say, if they did tell you beforehand, I didn't notice it or I missed it.
Yes,
But yeah, that's the way it just kind of it's just enough to just kind of keep you moving through the game, each little world, and kind of getting you to the end, getting you through each bad guy, and just it's just like having an underlying purpose. But again, it's more about the game and just playing it that you're actually doing at that point. Um, let's go ahead and get to the audio portion. So like with the audio, I would say like the audio. I mean, it's nothing crazy. I mean, it's serviceable. Kind of typical fare.
it fits
Um,
that retro vibe for
it
me.
does kind of fit that retro vibe, but the one thing I do know that was pretty cool was that the voices, right? So the voices they
Yes,
did go ahead and manage to get the original cast from the cartoon
which
from
is so
2012,
awesome.
um, which was really dope. It was cool to hear. Like it was like, oh man, that's dumb. Like you could hear it. Like it was very like
Yes,
it was like a
very
nostalgic
prevalent
sound that you could
in
hear.
there. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, overall, that was really good, and I do like the soundtrack. I feel like it was very upbeat and like action packed vibe. Like it just kind of kept high energy and just kept you, like I said, kind of similar to the story. Just kind of got you through each level and kept you progressing. What do you feel?
Yeah, it had that. It had a nice vibe. It was very fitting, in my opinion. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And next up, this is where it gets a little better with the gameplay.
Yes,
So for me, one of the biggest thing is just how simple it is, right? Like the
agree.
simplicity is great because obviously this is the type of game that you and I play together, but we also played with the kids together, and it's basically two buttons, attack and jump, and then you have like the third button, which is like a special that you would
Yes.
do. Um, but it's very simple to play, very button mashy. You kind of just, get in there. And if you're, obviously, if you're young and you don't really know how to play games too much, you'll just kind of mash away and just go through it. When you're playing it and you're a little more aware, you try to get away from getting hit. But I think this game for me, every time I was playing it, I just kept saying to myself, man, I wish I could dodge. Or I wish I could roll away. I was missing like that fourth button that would let me deflect something that they shot at me or something.
Yes.
Anything to kind of get it a little more, I don't know, I guess little more varied in the gameplay department for
I
me.
get that.
But again, when you look at the kids, I think overall they were just having a blast, going wild, right?
Yeah, it's definitely accessible for players of all ages, right?
For sure.
But it is true to its name. You know what I mean? Like the
Arcade.
arcade
Yep.
style, it delivers that type of gameplay. So it does mirror the simplicity and the addictiveness of a classic arcade title, right? So it's very straightforward, like you said, just a couple of buttons. Um, and it gives you that comfort of when you did go to an arcade, you put in a coin, you play for a while, and then you wanted to throw in another coin. The thing here is that it is a complete game, and so that rush of throwing in another coin, right, is not a barrier anymore.
Yeah, you just
So
kind of wait until a little
it's
timer refreshes and then you're
exactly.
back in the game.
Exactly. So because you're thrown into a full game, that's where the conflict happens because it is very simple and it does feel you get that repetition, that feeling of repetition. Um, so it does fall short when it comes to evolving throughout.
Yeah, the gameplay pretty much when you start the game and finish the game, you're basically playing the same game.
Yes, so it again, it stays true to the name, but it lacks a bit because it's not meeting the modern gaming standards.
Yeah, I get that. I get that for sure.
By the way, the thing is that it's not what's there, it's what's not there, like what's missing. Those little elements of like you mentioned before, if it had a blocking or dodging, or along with l- less of a limited amount of enemies. I feel
Yeah, like
like
more varied enemies, things like
yes,
that.
it leaves the gameplay feeling somewhat dated.
Okay, so taking that on consideration, the fun factor of it all,
Yes.
right? So this is where I think maybe some of everything else we talked about, at least for me, it's not like a math equation where you just add that all up and then does it equal fun or not. I feel like even though there were like things that I wish there was more of, like more
Yes.
enemy types, ability to dodge and do all that fun stuff. Overall, I had a lot of fun playing the game.
And
Like,
so did I. It was pretty freaking awesome. It manages to capture the essence and the fun of the franchise and what it's known for. So that was really cool. The turtle power for Michelangelo, he's like tossing pizzas, and for me
yeah,
that
they have
was
unique
so
stuff.
freaking dope.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
enjoy that very much, and they each have their own individual one, and it was cool to switch through the characters to go ahead and have a different taste. Which happens like if they get you and you're out, you can literally swap the
Talk to
characters when you're
somebody else.
coming back in. So that was a really cool, seamless situation that you don't have to finish the board to go select a different character.
So one of the nice things is even though things were repetitive and things like that over time, it's not a very long game.
It's not.
So we were able actually to play through it in one sitting. Took about an hour and 14 minutes for us to beat all of it at the normal difficulty. Now you do unlock a hard difficulty when you beat the game,
Yes.
but there's I mean, you know, it's just more of the same, but just harder, right? And they do keep score. Every time we played around, it told us which one of us won. So especially if you have four people and everybody's playing, and it's like, oh, who won? Yeah, it's a fun
Yes.
time.
It's
It's a fun
exciting
time.
for sure. And so this is also when you talked about us playing with the kids, and it's really a nice way to introduce younger audiences, right? To the Ninja Turtles, and you know, bring in kind of like with that nostalgia of your childhood, bring your kids into something that you used to enjoy and connect in that way. So
I mean, I
I
still
do
enjoy
love
Ninja
that.
Turtles, but I
Of
feel what you're
course,
saying.
absolutely. But obviously, if you did not enjoy it, you wouldn't be introducing your children to the Ninja Turtles, right? So they are for sure still pretty awesome and pretty cool.
I agree 100%.
But that's our opinion.
Yes, yes, for sure. So, I mean, I would say, for me, overall, I think it's a solid pick for a quick gaming session. Like if you want to kind of just pick up, play a couple, do a couple levels. That's really dope. I think it's just a fun game to play, especially if you're playing with somebody else. you know, we didn't play it alone, so we don't know how it feels to play it solo, but I
Oh.
can't imagine it being that different. So I think it's time for our review
Oh.
score. So I would say for myself, all right, considering how much fun overall I had with the game, even though there's some, downfalls to it, um, I would say that it's not not bad, and I also would say it's not like uh crazy good. More like a great way to have like a trip down memory lane with the turtles,
Yes.
right? So my review score is a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5. Okay. So I had a great time. I enjoyed playing it. I love the nostalgic aspects of it. And it was definitely something that, oh wow, this is so freaking awesome. This is so cool. So like you said, to jump in, get in there, have some fun is absolutely um what we did and what we had. So I am definitely, it's not something that I feel in any way like, oh, look at this. This is something that I am really happy that I got the opportunity to play. And that I can't wait to continue to play with the kiddos. For me personally, the game itself, it's a 7.
All right. So you gave the score 7 out of 10. I gave a 6.5 out of 10. And as we do here for our on point review score, which is the average of our both of our scores, the official on point for gamers review score for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Wrath of the Mutants is a 6.75. Overall, I think it was a really fun time.
Absolutely.
Definitely enjoyed playing it, and I do think that with the kids, we're going to be continuing playing for a long time. So,
Yes. It's definitely an amazing way to introduce it to your children and to connect and have some totally amazing fun.
absolutely, absolutely. It was definitely a good time. Guys, that's going to end it for this review. Check out our other reviews that we've done. We have more coming. With that, we're going to end the show the way we end every single show. Doodle,
Yes,
we're done.
we are.
Until next time,
You're intruding.
you're intruding.